I want to share an experience with you, and this may hit home for you. You may have some people in your life that it actually hits a little closer to, and I want you to know if that in fact is the case, I would be happy to talk with anybody who has either gone through what I've gone through or is looking at going through what I went through. So, I'll give you the short story, and that is, starting in about 2007, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. With the lymphoma, I ended up having chemotherapy, and through the chemotherapy, I ended up having all of my bone marrow destroyed. Actually, it's the red blood cells that are in the bone marrow. And as a result of that, I needed what used to be called a bone marrow transplant. It's now called a stem cell transplant, and it involved a hospital stay, ultimately of 68 days. And so I learned some lessons, as you might imagine, when you go through something like this. And the first lesson was, think like an optimist, but act like a pessimist. And here's what I mean. The first sign that I had anything wrong was a small rash that was on my arm near my lymph glands. I saw it. I didn't think it was a big deal. It didn't really get in my way, but I wanted to know what it was, and I went to the doctor to make sure that we did what we needed to do. It didn't belong there. We did the biopsy, and ultimately that was the beginning of the process. So had I just had an optimistic look, you know, happy ears about life, that never would have been diagnosed, and early diagnosis kept me alive, just like early diagnosis can help you solve problems. So that was lesson number one. Lesson number two is that as I got involved with this process of understanding what needed to be done, what the chemos were, what the cells were, it's very, very easy to become an amateur doctor. After all, you can go to WebMD, you can go all over the internet, you know, just type in lymphoma and you'll have enough to read for the next 3 weeks. But that doesn't make you an oncologist. Once you've determined who your experts are, listen to them. And so that is lesson number two. Be very selective in choosing your experts. Once you do, pay attention to what they say. So I went through the chemo process and ultimately needed to go through the stem cell transplant. That was the protocol based on what was going on. And so I entered City of Hope, which is a wonderful hospital, especially for things like stem cell transplants. And I started my journey, my 68-day journey. And that's a long time in a hospital. And I wanted to be sure that it could be as positive as it could be, and selfishly, I wanted to get the best service that I could get. Let's face it, all of the people that work there, as much as they may have a love of health, they're human beings. And I wanted to be sure that I was getting the very best service. So, I took an attitude of lesson number three, and that is, when you want great service, be a great patient or be a great customer. So my attitude was, when I was going to check out of that hospital, I was going to get the Patient of the Month award. So how do you do that? Well, you're positive, you're pleasant, you're friendly, you have nice music in your room. When you do things that cause nurses or other orderlies to have to do unpleasant tasks, you be apologetic about it. If you are nice to be around, people will want to be around you. And I did my very best, and I ended up getting phenomenal service. And I remember dealing with getting cold pancakes from the kitchen day after day, And of course, I got to know everybody. 68 days, you do get to know everybody. And so when I was on the phone with my new best friend Carlos in the kitchen, and I said, "Hey Carlos, any way I can get hot pancakes today?" And he said, "Sure, Mr. Kreisberg, I'll make you the first stop on the delivery." And guess what? From that day on, Carlos got me hot pancakes. So, as you approach things, you change your mindset and take that customer of the month, patient of the month approach, and you'll be amazed at how great a service that you're going to get. Lesson number 4, find something to laugh about. Yeah, you think being in a hospital with a whole bunch of other people that are in the same kind of condition that you're in, that there's not much that's funny that's going on. There's always something funny that's going on. Funny things happen all the time. And I will tell you that a happy face is a happy heart. So find things that you can smile about, find things that you can laugh about, find a way to see some joy and happiness in everything that you do. And lesson number 5 was, don't let a bad moment create a bad day. After all, today is the only day that you're going to have that is today. When today is gone, it is over and done with. And I had many days like that in the hospital. One of them happened to be the 4th of July that year, and so I was going to be watching whatever fireworks I could see from the lobby of the 5th floor at City of Hope. Well, if that was the only way I was going to get to see fireworks that day, I was going to figure out a way to enjoy it. So I know there are some days in all of our lives that are genuinely sad days. I'm not Pollyanna. I understand that. But in many days, we allow a moment to spoil the day. Life is short. Enjoy every day. Find some happiness. Find somebody that you can help, and you'll feel so much better about yourself. And live every day. Again, if there's somebody in your life that you know is going to be either going through a transplant or is contemplating it, I am more than happy to spend as much time as necessary talking to them on the phone. And if they're in Southern California, I'll be happy to sit down and have a cup of coffee with them as well. Thanks for listening.